Right. Today we have under the title of AI chatbots, opportunities, technology, and get started with implementation. Basically, every opportunity from our very own Dr. Chan Weng Hao. Okay, and Dr. Chan is our senior lecturer at the Department of Applied Computing and Artificial Intelligence. Okay, so that Dr. Chan is very knowledgeable and he has, sacrificed some time to come and, mm, how should I say this, share his information with us. So I want everyone to pay attention and then ask questions. You can ask questions in the chat board or you can just ask questions, directly. Okay, so Dr. Chan, without further ado, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, thank you, Puan Hasina, for the kind introduction. Right,
You are
so I
most
think
welcome.
let's straight to the point, and good morning to everyone. All right, so let me just share the screen first. All right, so we are at I think everyone can see the screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, so I think today it's not until let me just swap this. Okay, not until what we call as a workshop, right? But I think it's good, at least everyone here. I believe you have some. I don't think anyone here is not using ChatGPT at all, right? You may have a lot of tools that you use, right? Not only ChatGPT, you have Cloud, you have Perplexity, and so on, right? There is a lot of service of AI, right? So basically, this AI chatbots, right, let you to, I mean, can do a lot of things, right? You can get a lot of information. Basically, it's like, I mean, if let's say 10 years ago, right? So how we do is usually Google. So currently it's like almost like a Google with steroids, right? So basically they actually help you to summarize and so on, right? But today a little bit different perspective is that, right? Looking at we are not maybe we are not as perspective of using it, right, as a first person, right? I mean, how you use ChatGPT is for your own, right? You are using it, get information, you consume your own, and then you get information, you create content, and so on, right? So the chatbots that I mentioned here is, let's say you do some study, right? So you're working on some study and you have gathered some information, right? Some findings. You want to disseminate these findings into the public or into a certain group of people, right? But how you disseminate, but maybe it's not like in the form of document, right? Maybe you want to build a chatbot. Okay, this is the perspective that I primarily focus here, right? So basically, is how we can leverage these AI models. We can build chatbots, right? And then at least I think for your guys, because it's not workshop, so I won't go through like hands-on one by one, but I will show you some of the way that we can do it, and we can do it quite easily currently, right? So we with the right tools, we can actually have a prototype chatbot ready in no time, right? Trust me, it's doable, right? But maybe for the first few times, you need to learn and you need to see how it actually works and whatever, right? And then after that, once you're familiar, you know the flow. Let's say what do you need for a chatbot to works, right? I mean a custom chatbot to works, right? Not like building a model, but how we use this model, right? What will be the platforms and also software? I think another one is quite important because you need to know your options, right? Because a lot of the time we are using a lot of consume a lot of time is actually go and find what are the viable options, right? And then to understand that option, to set up that option, and so on. Right. So at least today I give you some view, right? So these are the combination that you can use directly, right? And how you can move forward from there, right? So I think this one only lah. Basically, my name, and then I'm from this faculty, of course, right? So maybe some of your participants here know me in my class and so on, right? I also with big data center, right? So basically, I do a lot of things on machine learning, deep learning, and so on, lah. Right? So let's back to this today's journey. Okay, so I guess it's still very very important to let everyone hear just the recap lah. Right? I think it's not easy. Let's say all these things maybe you're not very experience on it, or maybe this is the first time you really go and use it, right? Because like I said, usually we use ChatGPT is individual, right? The perspective that we use it is different, right? But in this case, when you go to the realm that maybe for your project, you need to develop some system, intelligent system, right? So in this case, you actually can leverage all this generative AI model, right? But maybe some of you might think how actually we need to start, right? Because we use GPT through the website, right? So and then how we actually integrate it, right? And another perspective also, how we understand the capability of all this model and able to access that, right? And then within the process, what actually happened, right? Not say like we want to build a new model, like that is not our focus here, but our focus is how we can leverage all this LLM model to build a custom chatbot, right? Let's say for our own purpose. Let's say you want to your project, you want to build a system with a custom chatbot intelligence that help to promote mental health awareness, for example, right? And then or promote certain awareness, right? So you need to shape your chatbot so that it doesn't talk too far from the topic. You need to make sure it always talk in a nice way, in a nice tone, consistent, right? So it's like you are shaping a person that help you to promote your material. Let's say you are building the system on that, right? So we're looking at how to do that, right? And then in terms of AI chatbot, right? So what does it mean AI chatbot? I mean, it's not the traditional chatbot anymore. So basically, when we use this large language model, the chatbot itself is already at a certain level is able to understand natural language already, right? But I'll just show you what else we need to prepare so that we can have more customization, right? To tune the what we call the behavior and so, right? And what are the frameworks that we can use? What are the tools that we can use? Even there are some of the tools is no code, right? So means that I mean you might not customize, I mean focus on the customizing the chatbot. You might just focus on how you want to relate your research finding or your system data put into chatbot and let the chatbot able to access all this information, right? So maybe it's that only. So in terms of the chatbot, you just need to find customization to tap in the data. That's all, right? So in this case, some of the no code tools is can help you a lot, right, to achieve that. Okay, and then another one, a more important one. If anyone here is working on, let's say, sensitive data, right? So, or some of you, you are working on a security perspective. So, how to analyze some of the confidential data, or you may deal with some of the confidential informations and so on, right? So, you should know sending data to open. I mean, sending to third party, it would be something that potential data breach, right? So if let's say we use this cloud-based, so basically we are sent to third party. So whether that is feasible or not. If let's say it's not feasible, another option is actually very doable currently, which is working with open source LLM, right? Not cloud, but local, right? So basically, we can host this LLM easily in local, right? We have a lot of different tools that serve as the platform, right? So that is the next thing that we're going to see, and I will demonstrate you some of the way how to build the entire chatbot, because these are all the essence. I guess it will be important. At least you get the flow of it, right? Because it will guide you to explore much more things here, right? Even far way more than what I share in here. Right. So just get it quick. Right. So later on, I'll demo some of the way how we can make chatbots from there. Right. So I think when we say AI chatbots, right? So what we are going to make it intelligent at the first place is to use this language model as the brain to start with, right? So basically, it's not like we need to create a lot of the what we call logic, right? So logic in terms of if else all this statement, and then check on specific keywords or whatever, right? So in this case, we will just tap in how we can leverage all this, because we have a lot of LM currently, right? I mean, OpenAI have their own, LM. Then you can access using API key, right? You have cloud. right? Cloud, I think the latest one, Cloud 4, right? Which is quite good in coding, right? So in this case, how we can leverage all this model, not only the big model, but also small model that good enough for our use case. This is the something also I will emphasize in this talk here is like, I mean, when you want to do the consideration, right? It's not always the greatest, the best, right? I mean, greatest, but you're not able to use because of resource limited and so on. Okay, so back to here, LLM, I mean, basically you're dealing with LLM, you're dealing with AI models, right? So somehow these terms currently is quite equivalent, right? When people talking about LLM models, right? So also referring to the AI models or vice versa. Okay, so basically this is something that will always be the same, right? Within the AI, and then is part of machine learning, right? Deep learning parts of machine learning, and then generative AI is actually a specific architecture of deep learning, which we use this transformer, right? So basically, it's based on this transformer architecture. They have trained with a large data. It's like I'll ask the person, right? Let's say I don't know anything. I throw a bunch of books to this person, and this person read the books over and over again, right? Memorize everything, and then they understand. Let's say when talk about this thing, what are the next? I mean, somehow they know the relationship that this person, right? And then this person is what we refer it to the large language model, right? So basically, they are trained with a lot of textual data. They know, and that's why what they do is just probability, right? So you just try on GPT also, right? Let's say that you just put today is very just empty, right? So they will just try to fill in the blank based on the model, how they train the model, right? So which means every time when they have these words, and then they will have always have a ranking. What is the next word? What is the next again? And so on and so on. And then the way they decide the next ranking is depend on the previous word, right? So what are you talking about? Then what they generate and so on. And that is how the question and answer goes, right? And it did it very good. So that's why it's easy for you to like, you can just chat with any language with it, right? You can also chat with any way that you want to, not really formally, but informally as well, right? Then they do the prediction, right? This is how internally works, right? I mean, as a brief, right? So we are not going through like the exact entire architecture there because we are not. I mean, this one not focused on modifying any of this, right? And this to understand the key capabilities of this LLM, what they did, what they do best is on text generation, right? Like I said, they're able to predict the next word based on the given word, right? Or given phrase or given sentence. Okay. And then that's why you can generate text. You can do translation, right? So if you notice, if you talk with GPT currently, I mean, somehow they have a quite good level of translation, right? But whether contextually 100% accurate or not, I don't think it is always 100% or always very high, right? Maybe in some cases it was still very low, right? It still need to break through in that barrier, right? But nonetheless, they're able to do this translation, summarization, right? So I believe maybe a lot of you have done this before. Maybe you have a long sentence and you just put it and let them to summarize to you with a smaller size of the thing, right? Question answering, this is something that you do. Code generation, I believe this is everyone do this, right? So you may need to get some inspiration of certain implementation, right? So you have this code generation, right? And also conversation, right? So this is, I mean, by knowing this, what they did best, right? So basically, it should open up a lot of possibilities, right? So sometimes if you have dealing with textual data, right? So last time how we check is we check for keywords, right? But when we check for keywords, you need a list of keywords. When you need a list of keywords, you need to verify that whether these keywords is enough or not, right? And compare to your text, right? Maybe text is also, I mean, conversation sometimes it depend on time, right? Gen Z they have their slang, different generation they have their slang also sometimes, right? So in this case, keywords might not be the best case, right? So in this case, this language model is good on that, right? So you may also use this LLM to help you to extract some information, right? Which I have a few projects that did that before, right? Use LLM to extract information, structured information. You can imagine that you give bunch of text, and then they will just give you back the array of information that you want, and then you can proceed with the next process, right? Of course, validation, you need to check on that lah. Okay, this is how LLM do best, right? And then how they actually do, I think this also, I mean, initially I didn't put this, after that I put this slide here, because you need to at least have some idea how they actually understand text, right? Because this model, I mean, so-called AI models, but it's not like how we understand things, right? I mean, fundamentally maybe same, right? But we are very fast. I mean, our brain is basically is a almost like a supercomputer. You see this word, you know what's the meaning, right? Whether the first sentence is same with the next sentence, and then whether it's the same with the third sentence, and so on, right? So we can understand it very quickly, right? But for computer, basically, they doesn't understand, right? So let's say lah, if for the traditional methods, how we represent this, maybe we just something like the lower left here, right? So we represent based on, okay, this sentence they have this few words, right? The rest is zero, right? Because it's like I create a representation of all this data. Let's say this data I have three sentence only, right? So I want to represent this data in a numerical form, right? Traditional method usually based on count based, right? So there are some also they have some formula to calculate, right? But in this case, eventually they will end up a lot of zeros, right? Which means you may have vocabulary, right? Vocabulary that let's say like dictionary, you have 100,000 words, right? One sentence only have 5 words, right? So you have 5 1 only, the rest is zero, right? Second sentence, you may have few ones and a lot of zeros, right? So you end up a representation like this. Okay, so usually this representation may not be good to represent meaning. I mean, what we understand, like I like the weather today. The weather is great today. So basically, it's mean the same for us, right? But representing in this traditional method, somehow when you have longer sentence, it may not work, right? Because it may not get the meaning. That is where the modern embedding comes, right? I mean, even though it's modern, it's not that new, but it kind of some years already. But consider the modern one, right? Is to represent everything into vectors, right? You can imagine every single word. I can be represented in a vector of, let's say, 1,000 numbers. Like can represent in a vector of 1,000 numbers. It's like every single word have a coordinate. All right. And then the entire sentence is maybe a sum of all these coordinate become also 1,000 numbers, right? So every single sentence will become, you can imagine every single sentence will become a coordinate in a graph, right? And then from a graph, we can check whether this sentence is similar to this sentence or not based on distance, right? And this is how the model actually able to understand meaning, right? By transforming all these text into vectors, right? I mean, vectors will be a much more better representation compared with much more traditional, right? Traditional maybe works on if you have smaller sentence, right? Or your sentence is very small, then maybe you can have that patterns. But when you have unknown length of sentence, right? Certainly, you have data that a very long sentence with 100 something words, and suddenly you have a 5 word sentence and so on, right? So embeddings will be a way to represent all these text in a very high dimensional. And embedding depends on model. Some model embed it like 1,500 something vectors, some even larger, 3,000 something vectors, right? So which means everything changed to a 3,000 something numbers, right? So when they change that, then only they can understand, right? So what LLMC is actually this, the right hand side, right? They never see this. I mean, the way that we portray in our application is see this now, right? But what they actually see is this. Okay, so that's why I mean in building chatbots, one part important is what is the embedding model that you use, right? Some embedding models they're able to. It's like you are choosing dictionary. Some dictionary is big, they can cover a lot of words, so you can learn a lot of things. Some dictionary is small, so the perspective is very narrow. So some of the words may not out of dictionary, so they might not represent well, right? That is the key. Because when you build the chatbot, somehow you need to decide what embedding model, right? At least you understand the embeddings here, right? And then when I mentioned here, let's say, and here, Usually what I do is that actually split this text into so-called tokens. All right. So tokens. So in this case, I'll give you some idea of tokens. Tokens basically, but tokens is not means tokens is not equal to word, right? So tokens, it can be it depends on model, right? So one token can be around 4 characters. This is just a overall, right? Stats about token, right? So usually you can also understand that, let's say like based on this, it depends on how the model has been trained, right? How it understand all the vocabulary, because different model, they might have a different numbers of vocabulary that they know, right? So some model, they will understand a few words. Let's say when they scan this word, they will understand art is one of the word, right? Which means they have this representation in their dictionary, then this one token, then continue another token, continue another token. So sometimes you might have more tokens compared to the word itself, right? And understand this is more relevant whenever you guys chat with ChatGPT, right? So if let's say like anyone here using API before, API, how they charge is actually charged by token, which means the more you chat, the more they charge. Right? I mean, they charge by token, lah, right? So let's say, if let's say use personally, it's not that much. It's like, let's say GPT-4o mini is about 0.015, if not mistaken, USD cent per 1 million token, right? Per 1 million token seems very large, right? I mean, for normal conversation, it seems very large. But if let's say you use it for coding, right? Because coding, sometimes they generate a long list of codes, right? So from there, you will get a lot of tokens already, right? So if you, let's say you primarily use the API for codes, then you will use a bunch of costs, right? But to give you an idea, tokens, what does it mean? And it is not equal to words. I think that is the main message that I need to deliver here, right? So you need to always check on tokens. And I think eventually when we go for LLM, you have a lot of models, evaluating models. If you search online or YouTube as well, if you learn yourself, right? So people are comparing token per second, right? So how fast they generate, how good they use, right? So that is something that we will discuss also later on. I mean, for you to choose the right model for a chatbot. Okay. Okay, so now let's back to chatbot. All right. So if let's say you guys have any question, you just put on the chat. Then later on, I just answer on that lah. All right. So no problem. I think we make it two-way lah. Right. So not that formal kind of lecture or whatever. But I share you. I mean, these are the things that somehow I have the chance to involve to do some of the work or some of the project for the past 2 years, right? I mean, a more practical one now, right? Because I happen to have some on that, right? So that's what I share to you. I mean, more on the consideration and also the platform, right? So that at least you have the idea for your further exploration, right? For chatbot, you have this. I mean, generally you have these two types, right? If you want to granular kind of taxonomy, they have a lot of type, right? But generally, you have these two type, right? So one type will be the rule based, right? Another type will be the what we call as AI based, right? So rule based, I will assume this rule based, I just group all those a more traditional way, right? Means that you may have a specific script, you may have specific information, right? And then you may use more traditional keyword matching, right? I mean, last time how we search text, I mean how we search words is we based on keywords, right? Match the keywords or partially match, all right? So keyword matching would be one of the way we search for similarities or whatever, right? And then queries might be more restricted, means that if I ask in this way, then okay. If I ask another way, not really, right? And then limited and no learning capability means that you may have the history, but basically the model that used last time, they might not understand, or they might not use the thing as a context and so on, because this part of mechanism is quite complex and it is used in the chatbot with LLM. All right. So usually for the old one, it's more suited for, let's say, simple, repetitive, and so on. AI-based will refer to the integration of LLM, right? So basically, you can use natural language. I think this is the main difference. You can use natural language, and they can understand your natural language. So you are not like too bounded by the way that you ask, right? Because sometimes you might not know how to describe your problem. You just use your way lah, right? So in this case, you're able to handle more complex and unstructured conversation, right? Of course, this one you need to understand is not like definite, means that overall AI based you have these features, but it also depends back what kind of model that you select and so on, right? It doesn't guarantee like 100% you will get, but overall you will able to understand natural language, that is for sure, right? But how accurate, that is something that we will test and something that we will decide later, all right? So best suited for complex situation and so. Okay. Okay, so about the chatbot, and then let's say for this advantage of it, right? This is something that you keep in your mind so that you, when you see some behavior in your chatbot, you know, I mean, you can somehow justify it, right? And then you also can justify it what it do the best, right? What is the advantage of your chatbot, right? On top of, I mean, because a lot of the time you do chatbot, maybe sometimes people will ask, so why not just use ChatGPT, right? So you need to know the essence of your chatbot is what is the things that make your chatbot different, right? But LLM itself is versatility, right? So it's very versatile. So you can have a very specific instruction to set the behavior and so on, and then you have a chain of instruction as well, which means you do this first and then do the next and then so, right? You can also, it's good for automation, right? So some of the things basically you give an instruction, they're able to carry out automatically, right? And then the accessibility, right? So currently it's easy to access, right? So basically you just find API, right? Later on, maybe some of you have known also some free API as well available for cloud model and also local implementation. Okay, and limitation. Okay, this is always the limitation of LLM. If let's say lah, you are not like having approach to limit it, right? Hallucination, right? So I think this one is you can easily test, right? You ask something that is especially something that is recent, something that is up to date, right? So if you ask something like that, usually you won't get good result unless you open up the search, right? And sometimes you open up the search also, it depending on the model quality, right? If the model quality is not really good, not able to understand better the given context, right? Still, you will have some error there, right? Something that doesn't, because they are probability, right? That's why we understand from the previous slide. So what they learn is that they learn all the words and learn to predict the next word based on what they learn, based on the input data. That's all, right? So that is always one concern. Okay, and then another one is cost, right? So you want to, let's say if your project is thinking of fine tuning all this thing, right? So the first thing is on cost, right? So I mean, if you fine tune a smaller model, a 7B model is okay, right? So it's not much of cost, but it's more to, the cost is not, maybe not in money, but the cost is you need to make sure your PC is always on for, let's say 24/7. You may need to train for a long time, right? So you might have a risk to have your laptop have some issues. And that is also potential cost, right? So this is a cost that you need to consider, right? Also ethical, this one, I think you guys working on security, privacy, right? So potential misuse to generate fake content, this one standard lah. Okay, so the next thing, so understand about this LLM, right? So what is the model, right? And then how we can use this model from cloud API and so on, right? So the next thing, I'll talk with you about this local, right? So you see, let's say what is local model? So basically, if let's say we do some example here, I'm not sure everyone here have tried this before, right? But if you have tried this, you can mention in the chat also, right? Basically, you can use this local model, right? So basically, if I open up this, right? So I think everyone see this, right? Make it larger, right? So let's say we have actually one of the tools or platform that we can try to, use to host local model, right? When I say local model, are all open source model, right? So if let's say you see here, I have this much of model in my machine, right? Currently, right? So these are all local models, right? By means local model, basically this model, I can run it locally. For example, I can run one, right? Locally, right? So basically once they loaded, it's exactly like, basically you are downloading the entire model, the entire brain that they maybe have trained until, let's say, like some point of time last time, right? And then they open source up this model and you can able to download and host this, right? So basically when we run this, right? Right. So when it generates, this is basically happens offline, right? Of course, I cannot offline. If offline, then you cannot see me anymore, right? But this is running offline, means that the entire model is actually run in this machine, all right? So between no matter how, let's say like this model able to understand a image or document, you prompt it with image or document, whatever that you prompt it will just stay within your local machine, right? Because entire brain is here, all right? This is something that maybe workable, especially anyone who use what we call, who dealing with, or your project are dealing with some confidential data, or you are working with a system. Maybe the chatbot need to use internal data, and you've tried to design so that it use locally, right? So this is a way, the paradigm to show you what is how local model runs and how cloud model runs, right? So if let's say cloud model, basically we can make prompts, right? But what we need is the API key, right? API key that having in, let's say, OpenAI cloud, right? So you can you can get API key from there, right? But usually you need to prepare some credit, right? If let's say free tier, they might give you like rate limiting, very high. Very quick rate limiting, right? Basically, you just use a while, then the rate limit already. So unless you have credit there, right? So, but that one is for large model, enterprise level model, right? This is the way how they run, right? So if you implement it, figuratively, if you implement it, this is how they run. You make your prompt in your app, right? So you will use the API key to send to the server somewhere, right? And then the server get the prompts, and then the model generate back. Then from there, give back a response. So basically, it's the same way how we access websites using browser, right? But in local LLM, so basically what we do is actually download the entire platform in your local machine, and then you can, from the platform, you can manage your LLM, right? You can manage all the open source LLM. You can download from them, right? From the source, and then run it in your local machine. They will run it in a local host, right? Basically, self-hostable, right? So you have this local host, and then whatever that communicate is actually you just communicate within your local host only, right? Of course, when I say this local host, you should able to also imagine if you have your own server, right? If you have your own remote server, right? Not the third-party remote server. Like, I think in terms of security, it's more concerned on third-party remote server. It's not controlled by you. But if you have own server, basically you can do the same on that particular server, right? And if let's say that server is public accessible, right, or you can access VPN or whatever, right? So basically, you can have your service hosted deploy, and you can use it. Either you want to use it restrictedly with user authentication and so, it's up to you, right? But this is entire solution that we can self-host and we can self-manage, right? But of course, the scale need to look, right? But this is possible, and this is you may do your prototype in this way as well, right? If you want to show the ability of local model working with what we call restricted document.
Dr.
Okay.
Chan, I have a
Yes.
question though.
Yeah.
When we have these local LLMs, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they are not connect. Are they? If they are in your PC, they are not connected to the main cloud ones. So do they grow organically as you use it? Can we manage that?
Okay, when we try to make the chatbots, okay, in terms of growing, so
Mhm.
we are not physically, or we are not explicitly make the model grow directly through chatting, right? So the way how we make the model grow, one is need to do through fine tuning, right? Another one is, let's say we have implemented, because in this level we still refer to the original model, even for the local model, the original model itself, right? So original model itself, it won't change, right? Which means it will stay as is, right? How it trained, it will stay as is. The way that we try to implement this to make sure it grows is on maybe implementation of chatbots. We make it different memory. So it's like they still remember back your previous chats, and then use the previous chats always as the context when they answer the current question. So we can do in that mechanism.
I see, I see. Oh, okay.
But if let's say we also can do some fine tuning, means that
Mm.
something that we can understand as retrain, but retrain will use a lot of time and resources. But I mean it's doable, but maybe can explore on that one. But it will takes a lot of times and also a lot of resources now.
Okay.
So that one also possible for local.
Right, noted. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but I think that is a good question, because I think always when we run locally is we always need to think what else we can do it, or what else we can leverage it. I mean, to go further, right? Because in here, that's why I show you some benefits and consideration, right? I mean, on top of benefit is to justify the local model, right? I mean, if let's say for a brief, just you want to use it as a way for you to chat only. Maybe ChatGPT is enough, right? Because it's free anyway, right? But in this case, we need to know that the benefits of it is the offline access, right? Offline access, and in terms of it doesn't rely on internet connection. I mean, this one maybe more makes sense is in edge device, right? If let's say you want to have an on-site deployment of something, right? You only have intranet, you doesn't have any internet, maybe like a medical system in a hospital, right? So internally only, right? But maybe in some use case you may need to use some LLM, right? So local is one of the option, right? And then another one is on data privacy, right? So in terms of how you prompt it, how you ask it, all the response is actually managed within your own platform, right? So you can choose to store everything, or you can choose to wipe everything every day, or do archive, whatever, right? And then in terms of cost effectiveness, I think this is a big asterisk here, right? Cost effectiveness here, what I mentioned is more to avoid the cost of API access, right? So API access, I mean, like I said, GPT-4o mini is about 0.015 or 0.15 cent USD cent per 1 million token, right? I mean, for a single person or individual to use, it may take some time to reach 1 million tokens, right? But we are talking about making chatbots, right? So when we are making chatbots, right, let's say we're implementing some chatbots, right? So in this case, you are serving people, right? Or maybe you are developing a chatbot so that other people can use. So you expect 1,000 people use it every day, right? Then you'll notice the cost actually, right? Unless one day just one or two people use, and then maybe you not see it that much. But when everyone is actively using, this is one cost, right? But when using locally, then it doesn't incur any cost of API access. The only cost is like electricity, right? And also in terms of infrastructure, lah, and that one is much more a broader scale, right? And then customization and also control. I think this is something that a local one can do, right? I mean, ChatGPT, you can change their behavior by changing their system prompt, right? But in this case, what inside here is that local is you can also do more like how you set the behavior is flow by flow, right? Because it's local, it doesn't have much of a API cost in there. You can reuse it a lot of the time, right? Or you may also use multiple local model together, right? Maybe one model is very good in conversation, another model may very good in thinking formally, right? So you can use multiple model as well, right? Of course, reduce latency if everything works well within a same local network, right? Consideration wise, right? So you're more on compute resources. Yes. So compute resources is definitely one actually limit things that they might limit how big model that you can use, right? I think in terms of LLM, sometimes it's not like whether we run fast or not. I think the primary things that you need to consider is whether it's able to run or not. I think that is the first thing, right? So um if that one, they will use a lot of RAM. So for example, if let's say a 7B model, it will use about 7B model, 4-bit model is use about 4 GB of storage to store the model. But when you run the model, they need about 4 GB of RAM to run the model, right? And then to, let's say, really make it smooth, is actually you need more VRAM other than the system RAM. I mean VRAM and system RAM, the bandwidth is day and night, right? Totally different, right? So most of the time we want smooth is containable within a GPU, right? If let's say we don't have GPU, then we have other consideration. Maybe we need to find a smaller model, right? So those are the things that I'll discuss later, right? But computer resource is one of the consideration. And another thing is model updates, right? So means that you need to sensitive to let's say suddenly they have updates on the model. They maybe revise some of the layer or whatever. You need to re-download that model so that you always use the latest one, right? And then of course the technicalities to maintain, all right, to maintain it, to manage it, right? So it will require some technicalities there. Okay. So let's say on let's say nature of asking question for help, you ask a few time before getting. If let's say that process, if we use cloud, yes, basically every time when we interact with the API, right? If let's say we implement OpenAI model in our custom chatbot, so using the API key, how many time you every time you chat with it, right? So it will incur some cost. But maybe maybe at the background, because I see some of the service do like this, the things that you have said before, right? So maybe they consider cash. So when they cash, they might not charge as much, right? So anything that is new, then they will charge more. I mean, based on the normal rate, right? But nonetheless, overall, how the longer that you chat, and the more that they will uh charge. Especially sometimes charging is different. Input price and output price is different. Input price means that how many token they take from you, how many token they take to understand your thing, and then how many token they generate back. So there are two types of charges, if not mistaken: input charges and also output. So input charges, I think for O-mini is 0.115, if not mistaken, and then output I think is 50 cent or 50 cent or 60 cent, right? USD. So that would be the cost that we are looking at, right, for API access, right? So open source LLM, there are a lot, right? It's not some chap ayam kind of LLM. So this open source LLM are actually from a big company as well, right? So major player of open source, but it's not everyone here, right? So there are many more there. But those that is quite famous one is something like Alibaba. Qwen is quite good, right? Currently the version is Qwen 3, right? And then you have Microsoft. Microsoft, they have this open source 5.4, version 4 already currently. And then, but I'm not used that a lot. One thing that is quite good is geometry, right? Geometry is good because this is a vision model, right? Vision model means that they're able to understand vision, means that they're able to understand image directly. You can query with image, and then they will understand the image and tell you back what is inside the image, analyze the image, and so locally. right? I think that's good. And also Meta, I think Llama 4, I don't think Llama 4 is very usable in local because Llama 4 currently is quite big, right? Llama 3 is quite Llama 3 considered big also. Llama 2 will be something that usable, right? But nonetheless, this is open source, means that if you have the resources, you can try to use it. All right. IBM also have their Granite, right? Of course, DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek R1 or DeepSeek V3. But of course, DeepSeek, if we download, we may not really able to download the full DeepSeek, right? Because if full DeepSeek is about 600 something gigabyte, right? Even the 4-bit compressed one is almost like 400 something gigabyte. So you can imagine a 400 gigabyte for one model, you need about 4 to 500 gigabyte of RAM just to contain this model if they load it, right? So that's why currently you see even some of the machine, even on let's take the latest one with Mac Studio, latest one, you can configure up to 512 gigabyte of RAM, right? So from that perspective, you can contain this one, but with a compressed version, right? But it will run not that fast because it's a lot of things to compute, right? Of course, another one good one is Mistral. It's quite good, right? So these are, I consider some of the models that is quite good quality, right? And open source, okay? And if let's say, how we actually, let's say want to get started, right? Want to get started on local LLM, you can go search this, right? Right, so this one of the platform, Olama, right? So this Olama basically is a serve as a base, right? You can imagine every single model you download is a file, right? File, you need something to run, right? Basically, every software is the same, right? You download Microsoft Word, you need Word to run, right? So if you download model file, one of the way to run it, you can use Olama serve as the platform, right? And install Olama is when it runs, it's not only like serve as the platform, it will automatically serve as a local host, right? Automatically they will host it. Let's say like I have Olama here in my machine, right? Automatically they will just set up this host with 114.434, right? So automatically they will run this, serve this local host there, right? With the port number 114.34. This is a standard port for Olama, right? So with this local also, you can integrate, not only like we use it our own, we can integrate into Python, right? You can do your own. That's why I said you can develop a system, right? Let's say intranet system, and then you can have a chatbot with the kind of LLM intelligence inside it, right? Without the needs of internet. Of course, when you download it, you need, but when you launch, it doesn't need, right? They can work directly as long as you have enough memory and so, right? So this is one thing that is quite easy to start with, right? You can explore from there. Of course, there are a lot of things, right? And then in here, basically, they support a lot of model, right? So what I want to just give you a brief here, right? You see, there are a lot of popular models, right? You have DeepSeek R1, you have Gemma 3, Quen 3, and so on, right? So what I want to talk about this is, if you notice what is on the top here, right? We have 4: embedding, vision, tools, and thinking. All right. So this actually back to the capabilities of the LLM here, right? So LLM, they have a lot of different capability. Text generation is the standard capability every LLM able to do, right? But there are some LLM that not focus on generating text, right? Remember the one that I mentioned just now, right? This part, right? Modern embedding, right? Which means the a model that transform text into this. You can understand it like a translator. They're able to translate these text into corresponding vectors. All right, right. So this is what we have gone through just now, right? And then this is what the embedding model, right? So these are all. Let's say lah. I mean, to navigate this page here, right? If let's say you see a model down there, they written embedding, means that this model is specifically developed for converting text into into vectors. All right. Of course, every single model they will have their vector size, right? Like nomic embed that text is one of the consider quite popular one, right? So they will convert the text into, if not mistaken, the size will be 1536, right? So which means everything words go into this model, they will transform it into 1536 length of vectors, right? So this is embedding model, right? So these are some of the model that we can use, embedded model, embedding model, right? So other than if let's say someone here, you may do some text processing, right? So some of the embedding model you can find in Hugging Face as well, right? So those, let's say a bird model or something, right, that have been pre-trained, right? Similar to here, right? Just these are a more wider range of model that can use to represent. But which one is the best? I think I would suggest is to test with your case, right? I won't say there is a one size that able to fit most of the use case, right? And confirm it perform good, right? I think it's very hard to that, right? But these are embedding. Okay, so this first embedding. The second one, vision. All right. So when you have, let's say when you navigate here, you see there is model that is vision, right? So basically, this model able to understand what we say image, right? So able to understand image. So if you if you just give it image, then you're able to analyze. It's like this is good if let's say you want to. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure about the consistency, but maybe open up for you to explore. Let's say you want to do some image checking, right? So you can use this kind of image model, right? But you need to prompt it properly. Like let's say given this image, check the person in the image are looking straight to the front and have the white background or whatever, right? I think there are some use case that use vision model like this, right? So it's like you have one person that able to have the vision power, and then you ask him to do this and help you to check all the images uploaded to the website or whatever to the system, so that no weird things uploaded to there also, something like that, right? Because they can understand image, right? So this is vision model. But of course, text is standard, like I said. Geometry you can also use for standard text, right? So for example, let's say, but of course, if image we cannot do it in terminal, lah, right? We need to use other tools to do it, right? If let's say, see if I have, okay, I have this run schema 3 1B, okay. So you can see here, if let's say this is the geometry, so 1 billion parameters is quite small and is CPU friendly. If let's say you only have CPU, don't have GPU, right? So don't be sad on that, because we also have quite quality. I mean, in the recent time, right? This statement may not be working if let's say back 2 years back, right? But currently we have a smaller model with good quality as well, right? So like 1B model, right? Well, say learning in 100 words, right? But whether it's 100 words, that one depends on the model able to follow instruction properly or not. That one also relate to the quality, but sometimes it's depend on the use. If let's say your use is more to generate back some response and so on, right? So you can take a smaller model. If let's say it serve the purpose and it's not that resource intensive, then you can use this, right? Okay. So let's say back to assume everyone just install only, right? So if I want to download, let's say a Gemma, so you go to inside, okay? So basically, you see they will have this Gemma 3, 1B, 4B. This is the thing I will explain later, right? And then you will see this model able to do text only. This model able to do text and image and so, right? So sometimes smaller model may have some limitation, which it is a vision model, but due to the smaller size, they maybe take out the image part, right? The image understanding part they take out. That's why they can squeeze it to a smaller size, right? Then you lose the image input. All right. So this is give you some idea. Okay, let's say I want to download. All right, let's say I'll show you the example because we're not doing hands-on one by one, right? Not enough time. All right, let's say I want to download, right? So basically, you see here, Gemma 3, let's say that I want this Gemma 3 4B, right? And if let's say you have this latest here, means that this is same as this, right? This is same as the one that put latest, right? Which means the latest one refer to this one, right? Or else the simpler one is once you install Olama, you should able to just run Olama and then you have some command like this, means that your installation is success, right? Then you just run Olama pull, right? It's like the way that we pull from GitHub, right? And then Gemma 3, let's say 4B, right? That's all. Then if I click the pull, then they will start to download, all right? And then you see they will download. And these are gigabytes of download. So I stop first, okay? So this is a way that you can download the model, right? So once the model has been downloaded, you can check always with Olama list. You will see the list of model here, all right? So once you see the model here, if you want to run, just Olama run, then the model name, right? Whatever name, right? Let's say Gemma 3, 1B, and so, right? These are all very case sensitive. Let's say if you run fail, maybe you need to check the case, all right? Very case sensitive, okay? So this is the way for you to manage. I would say it's manage, right? Which means download the model, you have the platform to run the model, and you can manage your model. Means that you can download, you can delete, you can so on, right? And then the next thing, right? When these things are ready, then we can do much more things, right? The next thing that I want to show you is the step that we can do. I mean, what are the things that we can do? Which is this, right? So it depends. I mean, I just shows in a very big scale. Means that it's not to a specific purpose, but when you deal with when you want to build a chatbot, so majority of this will be part of your option, right? For example, if let's say we are working with LM, want to do local, right? So these are the options. So either you want to do Llama CPP, right? But that one is more technicalities, right? Olama also basically is also somehow based on the Llama CPP at the background, but they have an abstraction layer, so it's easy for you to manage, right? But the core is Llama CPP, right? So maybe it will be much more performance may be a little bit faster, right? Because I mean, performance usually is just relate to how fast the software able to communicate with your hardware, right? And able to perform this as the lowest latency as possible, right? Model Hub, this is a place that you can get a lot of model, right? And also Olama itself, right? Okay, so you have Model Hub here, okay, and then the down there is all this the base, how we can host, how we can download, how we can make the foundation of it, right? Okay, after that, let's say you want to build a chatbot. This will be the left-hand side. LLM framework will be something that you may need to take a look on, right? Because these are the integration framework. Means that they will, let's say LangChain. LangChain is one of the quite popular one, right? So LangChain inside, they will have a lot of libraries for you to integrate LLM into, let's say, Python. All right. So you can make a function to make a function in Python for the chatbot, right? If you want to go that route of fully coded, all right, or Llama index or Hugging Face transformer, right? So basically, they prepare all these functions for you to deal with all this. I mean, for you to link all these LLM, regardless is online, regardless Olama, they can do that. All right. And then after that, user interface. This one is depend. If let's say you're not working in in Python, you want to have other interface, then it's fine. Then you just change everything. I mean, you build everything. After that, you just add on top API, right? And then you use API to communicate with your interface in PHP, in JavaScript, or whatever. That is fine also, right? But if you want to build a prototype very fast, use Python all the way until the end, right? Because these are all I mean, this part also is Python library, right? So basically you can work in Python as well, right? Continue to have until a library, right? But on the right-hand side here, vector database, this is something that important, right? Like the one that I mentioned we discussed about text embedding, right? So text embedding basically is to transform text into vectors. Okay, the importance of vectors is allow the model able to compare and able to understand the sentence, right? Okay, so this vector database basically is the database that have the capability to store these long numbers. Not only store these long numbers, but have the capability to index it, right? Because when you index it means you can search it very fast. All right. So these are some of the vector database, or you can always find database that support vector search. Right. I think this is a very important thing if let's say we want to go further for the chatbot. Right. So vector database here. I think part of it, Chroma is open source. Right. I think PG Vector is also right. PG Vector is based on Postgres. Right, Supabase also the backend is also based on Postgres. Right, MongoDB you have local, but MongoDB local not support directly vector search natively, right? But MongoDB Atlas the cloud version support. Right, so this at least gives you some idea. These are the some of the options. I believe there are much more options there. I'm not able to cover everything here. Right. Okay, we have this, and then let's say that you want to build a chatbot. Just now, hardcore coding, use this. Right? If let's say you don't know not enough time to for you to hardcore code, right? Or you will spend some time, but basically you're not really like coding, you have a lot of assistant, right? But in this case, if let's say you're not going this road, another road is here. These are more to a low code or no code development platform, right? Something like Flowise, something like NAN, right? Something like Langflow, right? Flowise particularly use it quite a lot, right? NAN are used for some of the case, right? So basically these are the no-code tools that you can self-host. Means that basically is open source now. You can self-host, right? Host in your own infrastructure, right? Basically you can build a chatbot internally, right? And the way how they portray is drag and drop, right? But of course, you still need to understand the learning curve is more to understand the flow of the concept. I mean, the flow of all these components. You need what component to make the flow works and so on, right? And this is the part to build the chatbot with less coding, but still will test your concept. Okay, the upper left here is more to how you able to interact it as individual. Basically, it's not different like we accessing ChatGPT. Just in an application instead of going to the website, go to ChatGPT, and then interact with ChatGPT only, right? So these are the tools that I can install in my local machine, and I can interact with all the models that I have as an individual, right? That's why I said the paradigm is a little bit different. You build chatbot for other people to use versus you have a LLM that you use it your own, right? I mean, this is two perspective now, right? This one is built for other people to use, right? Because no point you build this for your own use, better you just use directly, right? The in this case, right? And then this one example I show you. But this one may be out of the topic a bit, but I think it's good for you to know, right? So let's see if I create a new workspace. Okay, so let me show you this one. Yep. This is a tool, Misty here, MSTY. I'm not sure if let's say anyone here use, and if let's say you actively search online about making chatbots, probably you end up with this, right? But this one, like I said, is more to self-use, right? Self-use means that I mean, Bobby is not like used for your project, but it's more like how we use GPT lah, right? Just is in an application, all right. So it's not a chatbot that you can share to others. No, right? This one is just show you how this Misty kind of tools works. Is that okay? I can. You see, in my case, I have a lot of local model. I can interact with local model here. Let's say I can interact with my Llama 3.2, right? So I can interact with this model, right? I can chat anything, right? They will have this conversation as well, right? That's why I said it's very similar to how you deal with ChatGPT, right? But this paradigm is not like develop a chatbot. No, this is just using lah. Since we are talking about this, I just show you a little bit, right? So I can have a lot of folder, right? Different, and then actually it's quite detailed. Is that I can go to this for let's say I can set a model instruction for this chat as well, right? So I can ask it to uh as an experienced trainer in AI and always give comprehensive detail but remains easy to understand. Right? You can set the persona yourself, right? Or you can also choose existing persona that they have, right? And then let's say lah, I just use this, right? So the next time, right? Tell me about machine learning. Right. So you will see sometimes when you set the behavior different, the way how they implement that persona to generate back the content is different. All right. So I think this is good. I mean, this also a part of later on in chatbot. This is something that you can set the behavior, right? But not in this case. This is you are the one who using it, right? So in this case, you can see this kind of platform give you a way to access and a lot of things you can explore actually, and you can also do a split chat, right? Split chat is what concept is that I can ask two model at the same time and to see how they behave, right? So let's say I get the smaller one, right? I can sync the chat, right? I can sync the chat. So let's say, right? So you'll see both model is trying to answer, and then you can do some comparative or whatever, right? I mean, just show you the features of it, but use case of it, it can be a lot of different kind of use case, right? So you see, this is how Misty give you this kind of thing, right? And then you can have how many bigger that one that you want, right? No problem, right? Another important thing here, I mean, this kind of tools, not only local, I mean, they can tap into Olama, whatever that you download from Olama, they can use, right? They can also use remote. Remote means that if let's say I can add remote provider. Let's say I have a key from OpenAI, right? So I can just, let's say I have a key from OpenAI. I put a key here, right? I just add here, right? So basically, I can also interact with GPT here, right? So I can make, let's say I just close this, right? So I just close this. I can make another one. This is specifically use GPT. And usually in, I mean, for you to understand, I mean, for information, when you use API in GPT, you can access more models. I mean, the way how the access of the model is almost like the subscription, right? But disclaimer here is that subscription is not equal to access to API, right? I mean, if not mistaken, the last time that I checked is different. You have subscription, you are able to use their service at their place, right? The use of API is different. The way how they use API is a more to a prepaid kind of paradigm. Means that you need to prepaid the how many US dollar inside, and then you get the API key, and then they will charge per demand, right? So the more you use, they will charge per token, right? So with the API, you can access all the latest model, right? Even 4.1, right? 4.1 you can access. Even O3, O4 also you can access, but O3 will be much more expensive. If not mistaken, it's like how many dollars per 1 million token. So imagine it's like, let's say $2 per million token means that every million token you will need to spend about 10 ringgit. Uh, so but you can have access to this, all right? You can, which mean my point is that this kind of tools you also can give you some access to this remote provider, all kind of remote provider, Gemini Cloud, DeepSeek, right? They will support. Okay, so and then they support a lot of one more thing they support is they support real-time search as well, right? This real-time search also apply to local model, right? So you can, which means when they search, they will search in the internet, right? And then they will use that as a context to answer back your question, right? So this is one of the tools I think quite good, but it's in this area, right? Which means for your individual use and how you interact with your local model, right? Usually local model no point if you have GPT Pro and then you go and download the API key and so on, right? But interact with local model, I think that is one of the key, right? So you have also LM Studio. LM Studio will be much more developer kind of thing. I open up this LM Studio. LM Studio is something like this, right? So you also can interact with model, right? So different is that it's more like you can select what model you want to use, right? And then they will just loaded that model. Once they load that model, then you can start to chat, right? And then you can make new chat. I think basically same concept with Misty just now, right? This is for us to use, right? A difference is that M Studio you can explore more because they are quite similar with Olama. Means that not only have chat interface, they actually have directly linked to the Hugging Face. You can search for model. Let's say I want to search for Gemma 3, right? You just search from here, they will display all the compatible model, right? And they will somehow tell you also whether this model is you can enough for you to load in your machine or not, right? Let's say in here they say you can full offload this into your GPU, right? Which means you can run this entirely with GPU, right? Somehow they give you some idea whether compatibility or not, right? This is on LM Studio, right? Usually for this one is for you to investigate how good is the model, right? Not on the development side, right? But to interact with the model, test with the model, and so on. Okay. So once loaded, you can start chatting with it, right? And then right, so this is 5.4 local, right, from Microsoft. Right, so you can see, I mean, sometimes you can see this model, even though small, but sometimes, I mean, depend on use case. If let's say for your use case is good enough, then I think it should be fine, right? And you doesn't have any cost on prompting it, right? And you can always talk to it. But don't at the end up always talk with your computer only lah. Because since offline kan, so no need internet, right? So these are the things that I at least show you, but maybe some of you have seen, I mean, have some idea already or are playing with that one already, right? And then to show you in terms of Olama, let's say in this use case, right? So this is somehow the relationship lah, right? Whereby we have this host, right? Or can have this hosting all the open source LLM and so on, right? And then we are able to access through terminal that I showed you just now, right? We also can access through different tools, right? So the one that using Misty, right? You also actually use the internal localhost API, right? Using Misty or OpenWeb UI, right? Another one that we will go through is how we can use build a chatbot in LangChain, right? So LangChain will be one of the library that are actually quite important, or not say quite important, quite core. It's one of the core things that you will learn, right? You will learn about whenever you want to build a chatbot. Okay, so I just show you what is LangChain, how LangChain can be used until a certain level, right? A very brief one, right? So let's say in here, right? This is a Streamlit app locally running, right? So basically, I implement. I mean, I think you guys also very tired on this one. So basically, everything that you can use API, you can interact with until programming level. It means that you can build a lot of things. Right? You just need to have more imagination how you can build this thing, what you want what you want it to be behave. Right? Example, I mean, all these things you can implement because with LangChain, right? So this is a Python application. So let's say Olama, and then I just need to set the endpoint, right? So I need to set the model, right? Initialize, and then it's initialized properly already. So this interface can directly chat, right? So they're thinking. After that, they will just respond back, right? So basically, this one running in local, right? And then it's not like Misty, almost like Misty lah, but this is you develop it through a application or developed through Python lah, right? So you add on a interface of a chatbot, right? So how it behave behind, you can decide how it behave, right? Right. So you can see every time when we are chatting with it, it will take some time actually, right? So those are the things that latency or sometimes is the memory restriction, right? But this is entirely built in Python through LangChain, right? So if we look at the, let me see if I have that, right? So if let's say LangChain, everything is in here, right? So you have this, right? So you just search for LangChain, how to build a chatbot using LangChain. Basically, they have all this, right? Because in LangChain is basically it's a framework that you can link to most of the services, right? You need to link to Olama, you need to link to OpenAI, right? And then you just need to put the OpenAI key, right? But Olama doesn't need any key, lah, right? And then you can define what is the chain. And basically, in LangChain, the concept is that for a chatbot to work, it will have a certain chain. First, I will take the input. After that, this will understand, and then they will pass to a next process, and so on. Right? You see, the flow is that you have each component play different role, and then they will just when you ask the question, then they will execute this flow until they give you the response back, right? So this is one of the way that we can do in Python, right? So another way that we can do is in, just now I mentioned one tools which is Flowwise, right? You can explore on there how to install it, right? So this is an example of Flowwise, right? Flowwise is this interface, right? So let's say this is my example test only, right? So let's say if I create a new one, right? So in this case, let's say we need a conversation chain here, right? You can see the interface is in this way. That's why I say it's less coding, but still you need to somehow have a learning curve of understand what kind of chain that you can use and what kind of things that you can do combination, right? But of course, the possibilities is a lot, right? Because you will have all these components in your disposal, and then you think how you can merge it together and so on, right? But let's say in a very standard one, right? So I just put a Olama model here, right? So you see, I can just put Olama model here, but in this case, I just need to change to localhost IP, right? I need to make sure link to the correct model name, right? After that, I need to link this to the chain. All right, this chain basically is the chain that towards you. All right, and then I might have memory, right? Let's say I want to have buffer memory, right? Basically, it's a internal store, which means you doesn't store this memory in any database, right? But you can, right? Means that you can store the memory to an external database. So let's say you want to keep the record, right? Buffer memory, this one is like internal, right? If you close this server, you reopen again, the memory will gone, right? It's a volatile. Okay, so after that we save. Let's just a simple Olama check, right? Save it. Right? So I can directly test here, right? So I can directly test the model here, the chatbot here, let's see whether it works or not, the flow, right? So you can see it works directly, right? Right? So it works directly, right? Means that this flow work, okay? But of course, testing this one, no point, right? But in this case, what good in this platform is that we will have a deployment. So it depends. You want to embed this in a web page, you just copy everything here, put in your HTML, right? Remember, you can put HTML with your script there, right? But you need to make sure it's internal. Basically, they are through API. Means that they will still refer it. If if here you launch your FlowWise, here also you launch your web page, then it's fine. You can directly access, right? And if you want to link to your Python, also can. All right. Means that is a lot of possibilities. Not like just here I just build. I no need to use Python at all. You can build the flow here. Maybe Python you have other things to do, but some of the things like let's say some of the processing you need to LM to work on, but you don't want to implement LM there. You can implement here, get the API, and then use back in the Python. As long as you are at the same server, be able to communicate, right? Or you want to use in JavaScript, or you want to use as just pure API. This one they also give you the pure API. Means that you just call this API, post, and put this information in, right? They will send you back the response. So it will become a RESTful back, right? So in this case, I mean, this one will be much more, much more preferred by, let's say, back-end developer and so on, right? No need too much of UI. I just need to communicate with the exact bot, right? So, or if let's say you just want to do a simple prototype only, you don't want to build any bot UI, right? I mean, no time to do that. You just go to share chatbot, right? Share chatbot, let's make it public. I mean, make it public is, let's say if you host it in remote server, you want everyone able to access this one, you need to put make public lah. All right. But if localhost, I think no problem. All right. So after that, unless you want other machine able in your local network able to access this, right? And then after that, save. After save, click this, you have the chatbot interface already, right? So basically, you can have this, right? You can have, right? So it's already there, right? I mean, sometimes I will prefer this one as a quite rapid prototyping, right? But I would say prototyping also is quite production ready because how depends on how detailed you plan the flow. If you plan good enough, basically can be a production level, right? But maybe on the integration of interface, maybe you don't like this interface, right? You want to build your own interface, then you just use the
Chan,
API.
from
Yep.
an
Yeah.
application side, right? So sometimes
Mm,
when we use chatbot, especially like when you do online shopping or banking or whatever, and then there is a chatbot there and you
mm,
use it,
mm-hmm,
sometimes they
mm-hmm.
don't cover a lot of things. Now, if they use an LLM, I'm thinking they can find a lot of things. But what makes their service of their chatbot so limited towards their own thing? For example, if I'm talking about
Mm,
UTM lah senang. Okay,
mm,
we talk about UTM, and then
mm.
I ask question to the chatbot about UTM, but it's kind of like after
Yes.
like one, two, three, they try and then they just give up and say, okay, talk to somebody real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's the problem with that?
Okay, I think the main issue is that usually if we want to make companies, let's say like companies kind of chatbot, right? So we will not make in of course we will not make in just this simple. All right. So what we do, I think UTM also try to implement a kind of thing what we call it as here. I actually have this here. Uh, this one. Because the thing is in LM is that if let's say we don't give it proper information, right? I mean, it depends on the chatbot whether at the background do they have link to any knowledge base or not. I mean, a proper, more consistent chatbot, it should link to a knowledge base. Something like what I want to mention here, which is the RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, right? So basically, this one easy to understand. It's like I mean, basically all the banking, all the UTM kind of chatbot, it almost act like a receptionist, right? Basically, it's a receptionist that able to answer question according to the company, right? But the problem is that I mean, usually receptionist, what we portray is that when we ask something about the company, receptionist will basically it won't just directly talk nonsense. They will have some reference, means that they might check back to their guidelines or whatever before they respond back to the customer. All right. So usually they will have this, but the problem is, does it first issue is whether they link that to that knowledge base or not. If they doesn't link that to knowledge base, or maybe they just hard set some information or hard set some rules, become a rule based one. So that usually not able to get much of information, right? Another way is they have this knowledge base, right? So if they have this knowledge base, the next issue is that how good is the information, right? So for example, if let's say we tap in one knowledge base, which means we have one database behind, right?
Mhm.
What RAG does is that every time when I ask, the model doesn't answer first. They will just search first. Search in the database whether the question that we ask, do we have any vectors that are similar? So when they have these similar vectors, then they return back this piece of information, right? So it was not like we establish. I mean, they will ask this. I have just jump a bit. They will ask this, and then they will do this retrieval. All right. So when they do retrieval, they are doing like matching of the vector, not like matching keyword, right? Which means remember the earlier slide we were talking about the vectors, right? Store into a database. So they will check with these vectors, right? Vectors of your question versus vector of the whatever content that available inside, and then from there, they will select, they will rank and select a few piece of them as the basis, right? Which means they will select few of them as the basis or as the context, right? This context will plus this question together and then only answer back accurately, right? So basically, this RAG concept here is to make sure less hallucination, right? Less hallucination, and then more reference before they answer the question. But
So
the rank.
sorry, if the vector database, the
Mm,
reference to the relevant documents, the
mm,
better reference they have, then it will be better and more specific services that they can provide.
correct. At least
Okay.
in the information level. I mean, this one usually information level, but we can also type in additional tools like web search, and also there are some also able to query the database, which is I think in UTM, I think some of the unit are try to do that, right? So when we have this thing, basically the concept is to make sure it is consistent, but the problem will back to this part, the knowledge base establishment of the knowledge base, because if we doesn't clean or make sure the information that we put is accurate or doesn't conflict with each other, especially when we have a lot of terms that may conflict with each other. I think in UTM, PSM is a term that maybe is conflicting with each other. We have PSM
Yeah,
for HR, we also have PSM for project, right? So
that's
the
correct.
context will be something. So how we actually arrange the knowledge base, and how we arrange this retrieval, design the retrieval. Maybe not one knowledge base. We might have multiple knowledge base, and we might have multiple agents. So when asked one question, they will check what is this question about, then search the corresponding. So they might have a design things here. So if, especially when we have too much information, sometimes it's not really good. Especially information has conflicting with each other, right? But generally, RAG is one of the way to try to optimize this output so that it is much control, right? Less hallucination, right? But in this case, the representation of the thing here also have a lot of innovation. I think some research using knowledge graph, some research using context graph, and so on. I mean, innovation come from there. How we can represent data, right? So it will be something like in terms of the model, it seems like quite plateau, right? Not much
Mhm.
of thing, but more on how we prepare this reference for them to extract, right? I mean, the way how they understand us is good, but we need to limit, not say limit, we need to restrict or make sure they focus on answering a proper answer, or give a proper answer. So I think part of it is this. Another one is some chatbot actually they just give information. They are not planned to interact with the system. So maybe not ready yet. Also, it's like because LM currently we have a lot of tools. We have a lot of tools like function. Some LM can do web search. Some LM can do database query. right? Not like just retrieval like vector database. It's like really do a query, which means we link SQL to the LLM and ask the LLM extract how many person that buy this and so on. Right? They will understand the SQL and do the query and retrieve and so on. So it's like we are giving them the access of that. But maybe it's not ready or a lot of concern on data breach or whatever, right? But it's doable. There are libraries and there are example works that query for SQL.
So the way I think just now you said about PSM, right? Which is correct because I have
Mm.
received email for other people, not Project Sarjana Muda, or the Sumber
Oh, so
Manusia.
for the for the HR.
Yes,
Uh,
but maybe this is just an idea. If we
mm.
have like an abbreviation database, so when the question is PSM, the next question from
Yes.
the chatbot is actually, do you mean this PSM or this PSM? And then you can
Yeah,
go
correct.
towards the correct
Mm.
one.
Perhaps at the first level, need to filter according to
Yeah.
abbreviation, any abbreviation. Yeah. So that will be something that actually is quite easy for us to test in. I mean, in Flowwise, because Flowwise, I mean, less coding, but it's like we can test multiple agent. We have a lot of multiple agent as well, right? So we can do something, I mean, as complex as this, right? But I'm not going through very detailed, but it's something like we have one starting point and then they will actually ask question. The question comes here and we have a first model, the first agent to answer the question, right? To understand the question. And then we have a tool here, which means they will do the search first, the RAG, they will do the search first. And then from the search, they will return back and then we will have a second agent. In this case, this is a template. It doesn't have anything. So basically, this second agent will try to get back all this information, pass to this condition agent. It's like basically, I mean, the concept that I like to use these tools is that you can have a lot of innovative here, whereby you can build a team of agent, right? Each agent for a specific purpose. But we need to have the concept how we think we need to resolve this first, and then implement this concept in terms of agent, make it multiple agents, so everyone have their own purpose, and then eventually answer back the question. So you have this chain here, right? So I think that's why the way this helps to accelerate a bit is like we're still able to do everything here by Python because everything here is actually doable by Python. They just this tool is abstract it into components, right? But of course, components might not give you 100% of customization because they cannot open up everything, but they try to maximize. But the most optimization, the most thing that you can customize will be still fully code lah. But that is a long journey, right? Kind of long journey. But this is something that is doable in this tools here. Right? And it's recently updated to the latest version, so it's kind of quite nice. Because previously I used this is version 2, currently it's version 3. I think last 2 weeks only. Okay. And
Okay.
that is something that if developing a chatbot, that is something because it's cover also the deployment. So that is what I like that. Right. If you host it with somewhere, you can also directly deploy. Or you deploy as API also can. Okay. And RAG, I think at least give you some idea the RAG ability, right? The concept, but also the consideration, because the issue would be first on the knowledge base, right? I think primary issue is to make sure. I mean, yeah lah, because it's normal human also. If we give wrong data, they also refer to wrong data, then they also wrong, right? So this is how the model behave as well, right? Lastly, I think there are few which is I think this one is for you to consider. Let's say like when you want to choose model, so how you gonna choose, right? So first is in terms of the size, right? So any if let's say for the size, usually they in LM they are call it as this billion. I mean expressed in billion, right? How many billion parameters? So basically you can understand it like the knobs and dials in this model, right? The more billions they have, the more things they go through before they give you the final answer, right? This also impact directly on the quality, right? So the higher, of course, the better quality, right? Let's say about the same model. Let's say Quen 3. Quen 3 7B will be better than Quen 3 4B, right? 4 billion, 7 billion will be better than 4 billion, right? So, but usually we cannot directly comparable with cross model, right? Because sometimes, let's say Quen 2, 14 billion parameters, maybe in Quen 3, the 7 billion is on par performance with that because they have some improvement and so, right? So usually I suggest to interpret in the same model lah. But it gives you some idea how large the model is, right? So let's say 7B is about 4 to 5 gigabyte. So when 4 to 5 gigabyte, they will require about 4 to 5 or at least 5 gigabyte of RAM to run it, right? Of course, when you load, then only they will use the RAM. When you exit, you stop, then they will just free up. All right, so they won't hog that RAM permanently, right? And then we have this this is one aspect. Another aspect is always we see this quantization. Quantization, basically you can it's not really compression, but you can understand it something, the concept like compression. Like usually if the file is too big, we try to compress it. So when we compress it, we lose some quality, right? Same as quantization, but quantization quite straightforward is they will just convert this uh floating point, right? Usually LM are trained in 16-bit or 32-bit. That is the consider the perfect form of the LM, right? So the one that Olama used, most of them is 4-bit quantized, right? So it's not the 16-bit or 32-bit. By default, you download one is 4-bit, right? But I think quality is quite okay. I mean, still acceptable, right? So quantization just reduce the precision, right? So let's say from 32-bit reduced to 8-bit or reduced to 4-bit. So when they reduce this, the size also reduce, right? So every time they get half of the size and so on. So when they reduce this size, the inference will be faster, which means when you type, the answer will be faster, right? And then if let's say if you have a 32-bit, then the inference time will relatively longer, right? Of course, quality loss, and this is always something when we do any compression of things, right? So that is, I mean, this one is at least because when we download local LM, they will have all this, right? They will mention something Gemma 3, something 7B, after that something Q4, Q5, that is quantization. 7B is the parameters. And then after that, another one to this one is maybe this one, if you until the point that you suddenly see your model not able to understand your instruction, right? Sometimes it's because of the context length. Means that every model, they have a space in their brain. That is how much it can handle at one time, right? So if you give too much beyond that, so they're not able to cope that instruction anymore. So they will take up to whatever that they're able to take maximum, right? So I think same as human lah, right? So we're able to get instruction. I mean, I cannot remember less than 10 instruction. I can remember 5 at a time only, right? So if suddenly you give me 10 instruction, I able to capture the 5, right? So in LM, they will have this which is called as context length, right? But of course, I think recent model context length is very big until 128K, right? 2K, 4K, I think is I think maybe previous one was smaller model, right? This one you can always check, right? So let's say if you want to know more, you want to use, let's say Gemma 3, just check Gemma 3 context length. By default is how much, right? At least you have some idea, right? So this one, when you have this idea, at least you able to justify back the performance now later, right? Maybe you check for some time, it doesn't work anymore. Maybe it's from the context length. Another one is modality. Modality is something like vision model just right? Some model able to do vision, right? Some model able to do not only vision, some model able to do thinking, right? Thinking, this is the one that similar like DeepSeek R1. When you ask something, they will think first, right? So they will have this thinking process. Let's say let's see, we have this thinking process. So I have this. I'm not sure if I have. Okay. So your thinking process. So they will have a process of I mean the way that you use DeepSeek before, then you see they will think first, right? So this is the thinking, means that this is not the output. So basically this is, and they will try to reason. So what are the step? What are the first thing that they do? And then what is the thing, what is the next step, and so on. Get the logic first, and then only they generate back the thing, right? Actually, similar flow we can also achieve in flow one. Basically, is a chain of thoughts only lah, right? Something like just now, the one that we have gathered the info, we check whether it's relevant or not. If not relevant, do again and so on. Very similar concept, right? Just this one is already built in the model, right? So any model that have thinking put here means that when you ask, they will have this thinking process, right? The thing that if the model that they don't put thinking here means they won't have this process there lah, right? Another one is tools. Tools means that if you want to do a retrieval augmented generation, you need model that able to use tools. Means that this model able to carry on specific function, additional function, right? Like retrieval, I can do retrieval, I can do search, I can do web search, I can do scrap, and so on. So you may, if let's say that is the things, you may need to find the model that able to use tools, right? So this at least gives you some idea what will be the model capability, right? So I mean it's important for you to choose, right? I guess at least you have some option to choose that, right? So lastly, this is just give you some idea on if let's say I put it in a process flow, right? Right. So you can do, I mean, basically if you let's say want to build a chatbot, right? So you need to integrate LLM. All right. So you need to integrate LLM, then you should have a vector store. Let's say you want to do RAG. I mean, usually we do RAG, lah, right? And then you should have a memory management and so on, right? And also, of course, your LLM, right? And then orchestration flow design is the one that just now in the flow wise I drag and drop, right? That design, right? So the logic control, and lastly the deployment and the endpoints, right? So basically this one, if let's say for flow wise they cover everything, which means in one tool you can execute all this, right? Which means they cover all this, right? But the same thing you can do in on the right hand side. This is what still possible, right? So in Python, I mean, LangChain is in Python as well, right? So you can do most of this by code, right? The next thing will be the deployment. Probably you need to use another library, example, fast API, right? To convert it into API for you to deploy, or you convert it into Streamlit, a UI app, right? If not, if let's say you don't want to have the UI, then you use a fast API and then link to your application front end, right? So front end there, you just you need to design your chat UI and so on. When they click, they send API, get response, display, and so on, right? But that case is much more customized. Is that you can also plan how you manage the login, right? Because in Flowwise you don't have that, right? You plan manage how to log in and so on, right? But these two will be maybe something to kickstart, right? So I think this is the last slide that I have, right? So these are all the options that I consider as open source, right? So it doesn't incur any cost for you to use that, right? So another thing is maybe for you guys, if let's say still want to use cloud, I mean to try a bigger model or whatever, right? So go to one place called Open Router, right? So this one, they have this, okay lah. I think they more to like a platform that having all these usable or subscribable APIs, right? But they have this free version, right? So they have this free version. If let's say you're not able to host it locally for bigger model, you maybe can search here whether you're able to get some free model to use, right? So if let's say someone thinking what is the catch, I'm not really sure what is the catch, but I think probably is they want to use. I mean, they want people to use it so that they somehow collect some user query or whatever, right? Because it's API, so you are still send them, right? But it's free. This one is free, so I think you can explore that. I doesn't use this too vigorously, so I think you can explore on that. This is one of the place that you can find free API for maybe a larger model, right? So let's say your place cannot host a very big model, right? Maybe you can find this and you don't want to spend cost on OpenAI, then find here, right? It will be something usable there, right? Okay, so perhaps maybe some of you maybe have explored all this and try out on this. Yep. So yeah, back to Point Hasina.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Chan. So this has been, at least from my perspective, a very knowledgeable and interesting topic. Okay, so I have been asking a lot of questions. It's supposed to be the students asking, but hey, knowledge is knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So the students, do you have any questions? Do you have things that you want to ask? It doesn't have to be specifically technical.
Yeah.
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 If you have something that in your mind, just ask. So if you have a question, you can ask directly here. You can, open your mic and ask, or you can put it in the chat and I'll read it for you.
So maybe all start to blur already or start downloading or whatever.
Most probably nearing lunch hour, I guess.
Yep.
Why don't we do this? Oh, there you go. There's one. How to ensure data privacy and security in chatbot interactions?
If let's say what I show here, I think one layer, if you use local model, that you already have contained, right? But the next layer probably because what I observe here, how they communicate, they doesn't have any encryption, right? So maybe you need to if let's say lah, in here you do your Python LangChain and so on, you deploy it as API. Probably in API level, you can do some encryption or do some authentication token, right? To make sure you only authorize people able to use this and so, right? But if let's say you use the local model itself, it already self-contained to the server that you host, right? I think I can comment on that one lah. But further security, I think there are few points, and you can maybe see whether you can implement security checking. I think there is one thing that maybe I think in this what I know is the group of Dr. Zambi also in analyzing what are the perspective that you can enhance in terms of security lah, right? But that one I doesn't do much on that, right? But what I can tell you is the one that just now lah.
I think if I may add my 2 cents, it refers to the content of the chatbot as well. If you want only certain people to be able to connect to the chatbot and ask questions, so you might have like a perimeter, meaning if the chat request is coming from a certain IP address or a certain subnet, then they can use it. If not, then it doesn't go forward. So that way depends on what is it that you are, if you're doing Shopee chatbot, then there's nothing to do there, but depends on what is it that you want to communicate. Also, I think it's very interesting. I have also another question. Can we have, like, if we come back to the UTM one, and they have information, so can we have certain people authorized to add information into the knowledge base so that the chatbot can have sort of like a up-to-date information?
I think the one that I know the latest one that I know is they have this every PTJ they have this PIC. So the PIC will be the one that accountable and responsible for the content, So they will have a specific person, not say a group of person, but a specific person that responsible for updating and managing the content.
I think also from another part of security is when there is a chatbot, there will be people who wants to talk, talk dirty to the chatbot. So there must be a way to say like, this is not a question we are going to be answering.
Oh, so usually that kind actually the way that how we instruct chatbot, it will be very human actually. So if let's say I just take as an example because this machine I don't have the final one. So if let's say in this case we can tap in through system prompt, right? That is one, right? Which means in this case we can also set a very specific instruction. If let's say they ask any question that related to this or anything that nonsense, we specify what will be the chatbot to respond, right? It will be not very programming because when dealing with this LLM, it's more like we are trying to tell this model to do something. So that's why sometimes it will be quite limiting as well currently because the local model that we can use at large also is like maybe 14B or so on, right? Because smaller model, there is one more limitation is they don't tend to obey too much. I also don't know why. Right, but I think because of the smaller size and also quantize, they're not able to get proper in some cases not able to get a proper meaning and to follow exactly. And
So
on top of that,
be said that. Come again?
on top of that, because just now mentioned about the we have this in if let's say in flow wise we have this level of maybe security, which is we have rate limit. We also can set allowed domains. If let's say you have a specific domain that not allowed or only allow certain domains, IP address or whatever, right? And also some configuration. This is already embedded inside.
So there is a specific, at least a basic sense of security configured into it now.
For flow wise, but if let's say on Python fully, then need to implement ourselves.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to open for one more question if there is, because we are coming to the end of our time.
And I hope I answer your question, Abindran.
Oh, there's another one from Navindra. Let's say we build FAQ chatbot. Do we build it with predefined questions and answers?
You can do something like in context prompting, right? So means that in context prompting means that you give example in the system prompt, right? But usually you can also just give a document. So example, let's say it would be something like, I think no need to hard set too much. If let's say your FAQ already predefined in some PDF and so, basically we can use rec. In rec is I can set a document store. Let's say here I put academic handbook of FC, right? And then I can put whatever document that you have, let's say your FAQ document. And then when you create back your rec chatbot, right? You just put the document store here, right? So basically when they answer, they will try to base on this information. So in this case, it's not like you need to predefine. I assume if let's say FAQ, you have some idea of the FAQ, right? Because when we talk about FAQ, you have to be very specific, or else it will be just too general, right? So I assume you have predefined, but you are not setting explicitly. So when they answer, they're still generating randomly, but based on your rules lah, based on your content lah, right?
Okay. Is that okay, Navindran?
Or maybe you have specifics then, or we can also discuss next time.
Yes. The good thing about Dr. Chan is that Dr. Chan is in the faculty. you know. So if you have any more questions, you can go see Dr. Chan, bring him some chocolate or coffee, and then, talk with Dr. Chan. So we are here. But unfortunately, I am going to close the session right now because
Mm.
this is Friday and,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
students, yeah. So we will close it here. Thank you very much, Dr. Chan. This has been very enlightening, very knowledgeable. So thank you very much for spending your time with us. To all the students, thank you very much for spending time here as well. I hope you all listened well, got some information that you can use, if not in your PSM, maybe when you go and, in your career, you can use this information as well. So thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.